Okay, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're exploring something that's frankly a profoundly poetic yet deeply actionable framework, and it's called Smart Goodness. Now, this was developed by Oluyomi Ola David as a philosophical guide to problem solving. But listen, we aren't just looking at a list of nice inspirational quotes today. No way. We're actually decoding a step-by-step mental model for tackling complex issues, both inside our own heads and out in the real world. So let's start here. Distraction is a robber. Just let that striking opening thought sink in for a second. It's such a simple, brief statement, right? But man, is it loaded with meaning. I mean, ask yourself right now, what forces are quietly stealing your attention today? We don't usually think of distraction as a literal thief actively taking something from us. But in her framework, losing your focus means you are literally being robbed of your potential to solve problems. Now, before we unpack the rest of her philosophy, we really need to understand exactly who is guiding us. So, meet Oluyomi Ola David. She's a Nigerian policy influencer, and her entire brand, her whole professional focus, is built on solving complex, large-scale global issues. And getting her background is absolutely crucial here, because it shows us that her philosophical aphorisms, they aren't just empty words. They are the actual practical mental tools she uses to navigate real-world policy and structural challenges. Actually, her own words establish this worldview perfectly. She says, I am a Nigerian and I love people. I am concerned about global development and transformation. I enjoy generating solutions, influencing policy/strategy, and providing clarity. By putting this quote right at the foundation of our explainer, we can see exactly how she grounds her brief, poetic thoughts in this deep, burning desire to drive real structural change. She isn't just philosophizing up in the clouds. She's preparing us for action. Section 1. Guarding your internal focus. This brings us to the first major phase of her conceptual funnel. Her argument is basically, before you can change the world, you have to secure your own mind. And notice how she juxtaposes two totally contrasting ideas here. On one hand, you've got distraction, which is a robber. It takes from you. But on the other hand, focus is a tool. She doesn't just view focus as some passive state of mind or a fleeting feeling. She sees it as a practical, tangible instrument. It's kind of like a flashlight in a pitch-black room. You have to consciously pick it up and aim it to carve out your solutions. So how exactly do we maintain that focus? Well, she issues these really direct, powerful commands. Guard your soul, sharpen your conscience. Notice the active verbs she's using, guard and sharpen. She's urging us to actively fortify our internal defenses and fine-tune our moral compass. Because in her view of problem solving, your conscience is the blade you use to cut through all the confusion. And honestly, that requires constant sharpening. Section 2. Confronting the negative. Okay, once the internal mind is guarded and that conscience is sharpened, her framework moves outward. This is where we take that internal clarity we just built and face the external elements we're inevitably going to encounter out in the world. And she redefines negative states in a truly fascinating way. She says, oppression is a captive, meaning oppression ultimately binds and traps the oppressor just as much as the oppressed. And bitterness is a thorn. I love this one. A thorn doesn't necessarily stop you from walking, but it inflicts this sharp, constant internal pain on the person holding onto it. She's really identifying the true nature of the obstacles we face. Now, in response to these negative forces of oppression and bitterness, she provides a super clear, actionable list of defensive maneuvers. She says, rescue your house, raise your standard, shield your heritage, build a shelter. This isn't just about weathering a storm. It's about active, intentional preservation. It really prompts us to step back and ask, what are we actively rescuing and protecting in our own lives and our own communities? Now, consider this brief statement. Mercy is a maker. It's so easy for us to think of mercy as a passive feeling or just, the act of withholding punishment. But she frames mercy as an active, creative force. It makes things. It builds bridges, creates second chances, and fosters entirely new environments for development. And building directly on that creativity, she elevates love in a very similar way. Love is a conqueror. Now remember, in the context of her policy-driven mind, love is not just a sentiment. It's a victorious, dominant power. It is literally the force capable of overcoming the oppression she mentioned earlier. In her framework, love goes on the offensive to defeat systemic problems. Conversely, she gives us a warning about the state of being uninformed, saying, ignorance is a wanderer. Think about it. Ignorance lacks direction. It has no focus, no destination. And this perfectly explains why her previous command to build a shelter is just so incredibly crucial. We absolutely need intellectual protection from the aimless wandering of ignorance, especially when we're out there trying to generate real structural solutions. Section 3. Truth as a physician. Moving further down her philosophical funnel, we arrive at this truly fascinating metaphor about the nature of reality and healing. She literally calls truth a life physician. Let's think about what a doctor actually does, right? An active healing agent diagnoses the problem, prescribes the reality of the situation, and, this is the big one, requires us to expose our wounds to heal. In her writing, she commands us to abide with truth and to expose your need. This shows us that truth is meant to cure us. Even if the diagnosis is incredibly difficult to hear, exposing our need to the truth is the only way we can genuinely heal and move forward. Section 4. Transforming problems into assets. Finally, we've reached the very bottom of her conceptual funnel. This is where all that internal clarity and truth-seeking turns into real-world action. And it brings us to the core paradox of her policy-driven mind. Problem is an asset. While most people run from problems, she completely reframes them as valuable resources. I mean, you can't fix what isn't broken, right? It's a lot like finding a leak in a boat. Sure, the leak is a problem, but spotting it is the asset that tells you exactly where to patch so you don't sink. And it's that brokenness that gives us the material to generate the just solution. Problems are absolutely necessary for us to have the opportunity to create fair, equitable, and lasting solutions. As we face these monumental problems and attempt to turn them into assets, she gives us one final piece of internal guidance. Gratitude looks up. When you're deep in the trenches, trying to generate solutions, gratitude is the posture that keeps your vision elevated. It stops you from looking down in despair and keeps your focus locked on growth, potential, and the bigger picture. So, inspired by her final command to discover the purpose, I want to leave you with a lingering question today. Have you discovered the purpose of your problems? I really challenge you to take Uliomi Oladavid's Smart Goodness framework, guarding your focus, confronting the negative, abiding with truth, and apply it to the obstacles in your own world. Transform your problems into assets and start generating your own just solutions. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep looking up.